Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Galloping Major, and this video we're reviewing the Tier 6 cruisers for the Season 5 ranked. Now, myself, Manbobs, Eggy Harris and Iron Dan would all argue until we are blue in the face about which one's the best tech tree cruiser for this tier and which is the worst. And at the end of the day, we've just come to the conclusion that it's nigh on impossible to rank these from worst to best. Everybody's got a pro, everybody's got a con. So in no particular order, we're going to go through the cruisers and just highlight some of the pros and cons for each one. First up, we're going to take a look at the New Orleans. Now, the New Orleans is a good all-rounder of a cruiser. She's got quite good guns with very good AP auto-bounce angles. That basically means that you're going to be able to dig in a lot harder against a broadside cruiser and even against a battleship if you aim for the deck level. And you have a good rate of fire as well. You come with a spotter aircraft and the usual sonar, so that's quite good as well. The only downside is that you don't have torpedoes, and the lack of torpedoes means that in close quarters engagements you may find yourself at the sharp end of the stick, where other cruisers or destroyers who bum rush you at the last second may get that advantage over you and be able to get rid of you. You're nice and manoeuvrable, but also you are quite thinly armoured. I mean, you should be alright to angle against at the front, but against the side you're going to probably get wiped out quite quickly. Next up we have the Mayuku, the Japanese Tier 6 cruiser. Now, she's got slow traversing turrets, which is a bit of a downside. It does mean that you won't be able to make those kind of like quick kitey engagements, and with most of your turrets facing rearwards, you're probably going to be more advantage moving away from the enemy target than moving towards. But some of her upsides, again, you've got sonar, you've got spotter aircraft, you've got quite good fire chances, so you'll be quite good at engaging at long range against enemy battleships. And you also come with Japanese torpedoes. These are quite long ranged and heavy hitting. That kind of means that within your sphere of power, you can chuck torpedoes into an objective in order to try and deny access to that, or kind of like force enemy ships to make maneuvers that they don't want to do. And also it means that a close quarters engagement, especially say against a battleship, you can kind of chuck those torpedoes out and almost finish them off. So overall she seems to be quite a good cruiser. I guess maybe her only downsides are the maneuverability of her turrets and the ship in general. Next up we have the Fiji. Now the Fiji is going to be a personal favourite of mine, and if I had to pick a cruiser, she's going to be what I pick. But then that's just my personal decision. I am the Galloping Major after all. Now with the British, it's quite intriguing, depending on your commander build. But so I guess one of your pros and slash your downsides at the same time is you're only equipped with this semi-armour piercing that the British have. So it means against cruisers and destroyers you're going to be quite effective. It's when it comes to being against battleships, the Fiji can find herself at a disadvantage. Now depending on how battleship heavy this season's ranked going to be can impact on how effective the Fiji will be. I think we also need to bear in mind that there's quite a few Tier 6 premium cruisers that come with radar, and so you need to take that into account when you're making your shipping forecasts. With the Fiji, you do have this quite good concealment, which will mean that you can push in at the start, or move. You can be closer than some of the other cruisers. If you've buffed your torpedoes, then also your torpedo range will be quite nice. If you haven't, you've still got torpedoes, which mean that in a pinch you can use those to defend yourselves. Using your smoke to get in close, I can see that being quite a nice advantage. You just need other people to be doing the spotting for you. If no one's spotting for you, you can't shoot from your smoke, and if you leave your smoke and you're getting picked on, you're going to find that you're not going to last that long out there if there is a battleship heavy enemy team. We have the York. Now the York's going to be quite an interesting one because you are quite heavy for the tier, almost very similar to the Mayuku in your ability to resist damage, especially when angling. However, you do have a lower gun count. Now I guess one of the advantages of the York will be her sonar with a 5.4 kilometer detectability range. That means that you can be quite effective at pushing smoke screens. Also you have quite a few torpedo launchers either side. It seems that the York is going to be quite a good all-rounder, and I could see her being a go-to for quite a few people. the Algeria, the French tier 6 cruiser. Now the Algeria she's quite lightly armoured, but then she does have quite good gun caliber. The torpedoes, they do have this like widespread, but the only downside is the number of torpedoes per launcher. You do have sonar and you do have aircraft, but also you're quite fast, so you'll be able to move around quite quickly, especially using that engine boost, and you'll be able to maybe get to objectives first in order to interdict enemy destroyers, but also you'll be able to break off engagements or flank the enemy quite nicely. So overall this could be an alternative build where people want to rely on speed in order to move their sphere of influence around the map from objective to objective. Last but not least, we have the Shores, the Russian tier 6 cruiser. Now this is going to be quite an interesting one. So you've got like quite a low caliber armament of only 6-inch guns, but you're going to be quite a HE thrower. You're going to want to play at range like you do with the Russians, but you're also going to want to keep moving, because if you don't keep moving you're just going to be easily picked out. Your torpedoes are very close range, but at least you have some. But I think the real feather in the Shores cap is going to be that radar with a 9-kilometer range. If you can use that to push objectives where you think there's destroyers, say right at the start of the game, you should be able to quickly dispatch enemy destroyers, and then you can then play at range using your guns with their quick rate of fire in order to set fires to enemy battleships, and also keeping cruisers under pressure at all times. I guess the only real downside to the Shores is going to be her turning circle, so at close range this is going to be a disadvantage where she will be unable to make those kind of maneuvers to dodge incoming fire. She definitely likes to play at range, and then also she's her armor's quite thin as well, so she's another one that sits in that compromised sector along with the Fiji and the Algeria. All in all, it's not a bad bunch of cruisers. The tier 6 tech tree cruisers, there doesn't really seem to be too much separating them. Each one of them has their own little gimmick, which is quite nice. Like the Germans have their very good sonar range, the Russians have their radar, the British have their smoke, the Japanese have got their long range torpedoes, the Americans have got their good gun arcs and their good AP, and also like they can kind of like interdict with their 8-inch guns a lot better. And then the French have their speed, which then allows them to make those maneuvers and travel across the map to be where they need to be. I think that's one of the reasons why we just struggled to pick one. They're all good and they all have good play styles that you can use. Now there's quite a few tier 6 premium cruisers, so what we're doing, we're not really including them here because quite a lot of them aren't available in the store, and then the ones that are in the store, not everyone wants to buy a cruiser. The thing with ranked that we find is sometimes something might shine just for ranked, whereas it would be pretty much useless in standard. We've had that before when we've played certain seasons of ranked. So I guess we can make some honourable mentions though, almost like honourable warnings. You're probably going to be looking out for Atlantas, just because of their modest guns that just churn out yellow rain all the time, and they got sonar, so if you're a destroyer you want to look out for that. But then also you've got Belfast, a Fiji will swap out. Yeah, she's basically a better Fiji, or well, it depends what you say. I mean, personally I prefer the Fiji, but some may say she's a better Fiji. And then you've also got Indianapolis. There's quite a few out there to mention really, and that's why we just don't want to get into it. It's an absolute tin of worms if we start to open it. So that's just a review of the tech tree cruisers. I hope you've found this useful, and the kind of play styles that we think you will probably be applicable to them. However, play them as you want really. Some people are going to have some kind of crazy build, some people may have a Japanese build built for concealment, for pushing in close, or some people may have like an American build built for range, you know, trying to churn that damage out from a long range. But what you really want to do with cruisers, the bread and butter of your game, you want to make sure that you're getting that DPM out, because you have the highest DPM of the game, and then also you're interdicting on the objectives, that you're making sure that your sphere of influence is on that objective. If your sphere of influence isn't on that objective, you're not going to be able to pick out the enemy destroyers when you need to and help your destroyers. You're not going to be able to like push in to almost like roll up a flank or roll up a front if you can. Obviously you're also the weakest because you've got battleships out there. They're going to see you before they see the destroyers, and they're going to pick on you. So it's kind of trying to get your positioning and your balancing quite right there. But I really think cruisers are going to be the key to this season's ranked. They're going to be needed to back up the destroyers and to try and like push the enemy off objectives or make a fight and retreat if need be. Well, if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. I'm the Galloping Major, and back to the port.